Hi, I'm Will, and this is a tutorial for Multi-Sprite Animator. In this tutorial, we are going to go over how to create a new animation, import sprites to it, and animate it. In this specific tutorial, we're going to be making a walk cycle for this little robot guy we have here. Now you can see this is the Multi-Sprite editor panel that I have open. I'll show you how to open in a minute, but I just wanted to familiarize everyone with what it looks like. So here we have the robot. I've already assembled him into a little idle cycle. So we can see if I hit play, there he goes. Running through some of the stuff we can see here, this is the preview window. Below it, you can see these are the 2 frames in the animation, and you can see the little playback is looping through this animation here. You can also see the 2 frames here. And for instance, you could reverse their order if you wanted. Not a big difference since there's only 2 frames here, but that's how you would edit that. Anyways, we can also see that you can kind of scrub through the animation and see what it would look like there. And then here is the panel for all of the sprites. We can see these are each of the little pieces that make him up. And just as an example to kind of show you what I mean, we select his head, so like that's a separate part. Now normally, if we wanted to make another animation for this guy, the easiest thing to do, since we already have all of his pieces in play, is to just duplicate this animation and then start messing with it. That way we don't need to kind of re-add each of the sprites on this list. But in this case, since I want to show you how to add them, we're going to be totally starting from scratch. So let me just click on the name here to zoom to where this animation file is located. And we'll start by creating a new animation. So I'm just going to right click, go to create, and MS animation at the bottom here. So there we go. So this starts us with a new animation. Here we just have a default kind of empty sprite here. Let's first start by just naming this robot walk down. So this is going to be our walking animation. So first thing we need to do is just import all of our sprites here. So we're just going to kind of go one at a time and get them all in. So for instance, we're going to start with the shadow on the bottom. So I'll title that shadow. Click this. I can find my robot shadow, and there it is. Now the shadow is going to be below everything, so that's what the sorting order comes into play. This is just like the sorting order you would see on a sprite renderer. So we'll just say like -30 to make sure that's below everything. Another thing this supports is if you open up the kind of additional stuff here, you can see the sorting layer. Right now it's set to use parent, which means that we'll just use whatever the sorting order that kind of is blanketly applied to everything here. But you know, let's say you had a sorting layer called ground that was below all of your sprites, then you could set it to that here, and that would keep the shadow below everything as well. Anyways, so let's add the next sprite. Click new sprite. There's that. We'll call this head. Click here. There we go. Now I'm just going to quickly bring all these out, and I'll just speed up the video here so you can kind of see me laying all these out. Just one thing to note, that one thing I'm going to be doing as I go is each sprite I add, I will add it, I will name it, and I will affect the sorting order based on like how high I want it to be. So the head's going to be pretty near the top, so I'll make this like, I don't know, 10 just to be safe. That should leave room for all the legs to go below it. So anyways, I'm just going to go ahead and add all of these. Okay, and there we go. Now if you saw me clicking and changing the order on a bunch of those, that was just me making sure that as I add the legs, these are moved up enough. I actually had to move the head and the eyes up one sorting order to make sure they'd overlap properly like that. Anyway, so I've got all the pieces out here, and now I'm just going to walk you through how I would do the animations. So first of all, you can select which piece you'd like to move, like the head, from this drop down, but an easier way to do it is to just hold down Command, or if you're on Windows, I think it's Control, and click, and you'll see that it's highlighted the this headpiece. So I can do that. I can select this underhead bit. So I'm just going to kind of like get him looking like a robot. Get all his little pieces in order. So there's 1 foot there and 1 foot there. Now one thing you can see that in this instance I'm using a pixel art for this. This works totally well without pixelated artwork, but in this case, because it's pixel artwork, it'd be really nice if I didn't have these little bits where it's kind of not lining up properly. It would be really nice if it looked like it was a single sprite. So if you want to do that, you can just open up this animation settings here and click pixel perfect snapping. And that will just kind of snap everybody to being pixel perfect. One thing to note is that you do need to set this pixel per unit setting here. This should just be set to whatever your sprites are set to. So if you look at the image here, we see I have it pixel per unit is set to 32. So that is what I would have that set to. Anyway, so getting back here. There we go. So we've got him kind of standing. Now, this little plus sign here, that represents the kind of orientation point. So if this is, when you attach this to a game object, that will be the point of the game object, basically. And what's really nice to set it at the feet like that is you can do really simple z-sorting and say like, oh, is that point below or above any other point in the game? And if it's below it, then make sure this guy appears in front, that sort of thing. Anyway, that looks pretty good. So that looks like our first frame. So we'll just hit save here to make sure we don't have any issues. And let's start moving him. So let me click plus for a new frame. See, it's created another new frame here. And you can see that I can kind of drag these frames out to get them even. Let's just set these both to half a second. Now, for this next frame, we're going to have him, let's have him with his foot forward. So you can kind of see this is how he'll animate. Doesn't exactly look like he's walking quite yet. I think we need a few more frames. So that'll be with his foot down. Then create one more frame. And you'll notice that when you hit new frame, the next frame that's created will be a clone of, position-wise, of whichever frame you had selected. So for instance, let's remove this frame. If I hit new frame with this one selected, it will create a guy who looks the same as the first frame. So it looks like he kind of returns his feet to a neutral position here. And then we'll do one more. And now we'll have him extend his other leg. So it saves. Now if we hit play, we can kind of see he's sliding around. It still looks a little silly, but we're getting there. Let's shorten all these to about a third of a second. That looks a little better. Now I think the real issue here is that he's not lifting up his feet. So we'll have him maybe on this one, instead of having him, if this is him with his foot down, this should be him with his foot kind of up in the air. So in order to do that, we actually have a different sprite that we can use for this foot that shows the bottom of it. So we'll use this sprite instead. It looks like it's going the wrong way, so we'll flip it with this flip X button here. And it should really be in front of the rest of these legs in this case. So for this frame, we'll move it up. Now you see that because I changed this sprite, it actually changed it for all of the ones continuing. That's because if you look at these sprites, there's actually no image or anything selected for this right foot here. It just uses the last one that was defined. So since we want this one to be up, we're going to select for this one for it to be down, and that will set these guys back to being like that. So there he is with his foot up. There we go, it's looking a little better. Cool. So let's see. Maybe we'll make these frames a little shorter. His eyes look like they're bouncing all over the place, so let's fix that. And there we have it. Now, one thing I'm noticing is that he's a little too far down. You can see his front step is a little far off his shadow. So one way to fix that is you can just kind of hold shift, and then you can move all the sprites at once up. Just a little bit. And then let's just recenter the shadow. I want to keep that as like a registration point. Where now another option we have here to affect the way the walking works is right now these frames are tweened linearly. So that's right here. Now what this means is that it will move from this frame to this frame totally evenly. But there's a bunch of different curve options that you can put. So right now I have it set so that there's linear sign in out, which means it'll kind of smoothly start, then speed up, and then smoothly slow down. In, which is just the smooth at the beginning, and out, which is just smoothly at the end. You can actually add more curves in the MS curves file, and they'll just appear here if you add them, if you want to write your own. But these usually are all you need. So you can see how much you can affect it. Now he's got a little bit more of a jaunt to him. And that's it for part 1 of the tutorial. Thank you.